Welcome to 360 Retirement. I'm your host, Paul Gebhard. Today, with my guest, Keith Wiltfong of Capstone Planning. How you doing today, Keith?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
Good, brother, good. Good to see you again.
Nice seeing you.
Yes. Coming to us from beautiful Florida, right?
Yes.
So, family business.
Family business.
Right. So, tell me a little bit about why you chose to be a financial planner.
Yeah, I think the biggest reason that I really kind of got involved in the family business more than anything else was because I saw the impact that my father made in people's lives. And it was change that you could actually see. Rather than, me coming from the big banks like Deutsche Bank and Wells Fargo, you make the changes, you do the job, but you never really see the change. And then having that, sitting across a table just like I am from you today and actually seeing that change and making that difference, I think really that's what drives me and ultimately really what drives our business.
Right.
It's just being able to see that change.
Yeah, investing in people, right?
Yeah, and because we're a family-based business with mom, dad, and brother, I mean, really, everyone just becomes an extension of that family.
Yeah,
and we have lots of, fun get-togethers and stuff throughout the year just to keep everybody close.
Fantastic.
6 feet apart with the mask on.
Right. Got to be COVID compliant, right?
Yes.
COVID compliant. That's a great aspect of family approach and how you care about your clients. I know that's important to you. In a good financial planner, it starts with listening. We talked about that.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I'm wondering, for people that have an advisor, maybe their plan has been on course, it's always probably a good idea to at least get a second opinion, right?
And that's exactly right. And the second opinion, what we see as far as the biggest kind of pitfall that people run into is that their plan's on course and that they assume that most of the plans assume it's going to be perfect forever. We're not going to have a massive downturn, or no one's ever going to get sick. No one's ever going to potentially lose a job. No one's ever going to pass before they were expected to. So what we really do is kind of stress test those financial plans. So what if Betty were to pass, or Sue were to pass, or Joe were to pass early, and now all of a sudden you go from having 2 Social Security checks to 1, maybe 2 pensions to 1 pension or no pension at all. So income's going to be down. And then the other thing that works against folks that we stress test is, what about taxes now? Because taxes were, before they were joint when you were married. Now if you had a spouse predecease you, now it's individual. So taxes are going to be higher. And that's assuming that someone just passes like this. And unfortunately, that's not typically what we see. And it's a scary statistic that 85% of the widows today that are in poverty were not in poverty for the passing of their spouse. So it's a little bit of planning can go a very long way.
Hold on a second. 85% of the spouses were not in poverty before
the passing of their spouse. And what we see is one spouse will spend down the assets, pass, and now all of a sudden income's cut in half and taxes are close to double.
Wow.
So what does that translate into? A lifetime, and sometimes it's one little small decision, one decision that can be made to prevent all that.
Yeah.
And that's really what we do, is stress test those financial plans to make sure no matter what life throws at them, they're going to be okay.
Right. So we're talking about providing for people you care about, your loved ones, right?
Yes.
I mean, all the more reason to do that. And so, talk to me a little bit about that, about how important estate planning and life insurance is and why a person should review that on a regular basis.
Yeah, the biggest thing, one of the first things that we'll do is when someone comes on board is we'll review all their beneficiary lines to make sure for their IRAs and 401ks and 403bs, they have beneficiaries that are designated, that are people. That way it passes. No probate, no issues. And then for their non-qualified accounts, we make sure that those are set up with a TOD, or a transfer on death. Again, no probate, direct transfer. And then probably the most overlooked is on bank accounts, to make sure that a POD is set up, or a pay on death. So those are the 3 main things that we cover. And then the nice thing about Florida is we have something called the Lady Bird Deed, or estate deed, which is another way that you can transfer your main property without transferring any ownership while you live directly to a beneficiary.
Wow.
So it's something unique about Florida. So in general, it's pretty easy to avoid probate if you have those boxes checked.
Right. Absolutely. And I've actually heard nightmare stories about beneficiaries not being changed.
Yes.
And them being binding. Do you mind sharing some of those things with us?
Yeah, a sad story is that my aunt, she was married, and her spouse, out of brain aneurysm, passed immediately. They were married for only a short number of years, and they had a few kids together, and he had a life policy that she knew about that was going to help provide for her and the kids. Unfortunately, the beneficiary line was his sister. And it was never changed.
Oh,
and then, do you think the sister helped out?
Helped out, no.
She said, my brother wanted me to have that money. So, and again, that's just one little decision
Yes.
that affects you for a lifetime.
Yes, and you know, money does strange things to people in points like that, especially high-stress situations. But it's nice to know that they can sit with you and review these things. And if you just found something like that, that's well worth a visit.
Absolutely, and I think it's so important, like when you say it can stress people, even receiving a large lump of sum of money. I've seen brothers and sisters that got along perfectly, received a sum of money from an inheritance and never talked to one another again because they were upset how it was laid out.
True, no, so true. And talk about that, I mean, there's another aspect, you know, when someone leaves a legacy, right, and they get this lump sum of money,
yes,
people don't necessarily know exactly what to do and where to go with it. That's another time probably when someone should probably reach out and do a review and talk about their planning for their future.
Absolutely. So a lot of the clients that we work with will sell a home in New York or Jersey or something like that, and they'll have a large lump sum. And they never really had a large lump sum before because they were working and providing for their family, but they were still paying the mortgage.
Right.
And now they have this lump sum, and they say, you know, what do I do with it? Because this is all I have to make sure it lasts me as long as I do. And really what we like to do is structure it in 3 ways to make it as stress-free as possible, but still provide a lot of flexibility. And basically it's a bucketing strategy. So in the first bucket, we really have short-term liquid money. So this is money that's in the bank. It's going to cover you for the first 12 months. And then the second one is really going to be 2 to 10 years. And this money is going to wiggle a little bit. It might have some market money, but overall, it's not going to be catastrophic if we have like a 2008. And then finally, in this kind of later bucket, we have this set up for more aggressive growth. And this additional risk with the idea we're going to have additional return. So having these first 2 buckets really gives us that peace of mind, especially that middle one, that volatility buffer that buys that horizon. So something like 2008, or in 2020, a February and March where you lost over 30% in the span of about 60 days. If that happens, you can feel at peace with your plan. You say, hey, I know this is going to happen. There's going to be 2008s.
Right.
I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow, next year, 5 year, 10 year, but it's going to happen again. Look at 2000, 2001, 2002, where we lost 50% over the course of 3 years, if you measure by the S&P 500. So you're down in 2000, down in 2001, down in 2002. You better have a plan in place for that.
Wow. Speaking of 2008, we're going to come back to that in relations to market volatility, but I understand you have an offer for our viewers today.
Yes, so for the first 10 callers, what we're offering is a complimentary stress test of your current financial plan. And if you don't have a financial plan, you can come in and we'll set one up and also stress test it for you. And what that's going to mean for you is we're going to test for all the what ifs in life. And one thing that we always ask people is, are you confident enough in your current financial plan to go out and get that second opinion and to make sure it's going to be bulletproof? And that's exactly what we're going to do for the first 10 callers that call in 888-222-4498. Again, that's 888-222-4498.
Wow, fantastic. Hey, I hope you're learning a lot today. We're going to take a short break, but we'll be right back after these messages. Stay with us.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. This is a $999 value that we're giving away complimentary to the first 10 people who respond. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have. By running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Welcome back to 360 Retirement. I'm your host, Paul Gebhard, with my guest here, Keith Wiltfong. And we're talking again about market volatility in the break in 2008.
Yes.
I know 2008 is, very much a time frame where everybody remembers what occurred. Can you share with our viewers some of the things they can do and what they can do to bulletproof their financial plan?
And I think the biggest thing is planning for another 2008-like event, to make sure that your portfolio and your investments are everything structured that a 2008 isn't going to completely throw it off track. And that's where we talk about having that strategy we're bucketing. We're allowing it to grow in a 2009 and 10, 11, and 12, and 13. The positioning that allows you not to kind of capitulate and make that emotional one-time decision that can basically affect you for a lifetime. Because the downside about the market timing and moving to cash is you'd only have to be right once, you have to be right twice. So if you get out, when do you get back in? And I guarantee, from an analytical standpoint, you could have easily made in 2020 that the market could have been down for April and May and June and July, but it wasn't. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the times markets are unpredictable.
Totally.
And having a plan in place for that unpredictability is a reason that we do that planning and the reason that we do that stress testing, to make sure no matter what life throws at us, we're going to be okay.
Right.
And a new crisis that I think we haven't really even seen before is the interest rate environment that we're currently in. Because back in the 80s, when you had doubled interest mortgages and double-digit CDs,
yes,
and then basically as it went down, your fixed income portfolio, your bonds, were not only paying out better interest at that time, but they were also profitable from capital appreciation, because bonds are like that seesaw, right? If one goes down, the other one goes higher, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
now if we enter this period where in all likelihood probably hit close to the bottom, and now we're seeing it start to jump back up, inflation being reintroduced, we're seeing that at the gas pumps, we're seeing that in a lot of different places.
Everywhere.
So now we're going to see fixed income, these safe portfolios, all of a sudden start to lose money. And I think it's going to confuse a lot of investors out there.
Yeah, no, you bring up something I always think about. There's no such thing as too much money, but you can definitely be in a position where you don't have enough.
Absolutely.
Right? So a good plan can help to prevent that for sure. One of the tools, or one of the things I've heard about along the lines of what you're talking about, market volatility, things that happened in 2008, is annuities.
Yes. Yep.
That's a wonderful word, in some regards, and some folks, they really get anxious about speaking about it.
Yeah, like annuities are the devil, right? So
Sure,
I've heard it all ways, yeah.
Right.
And at the end of the day, annuity is just basically a stream of income payments in its simplest definition. The ones that we kind of utilize sometimes in our practice, again, depending on the situation, is almost like a bond alternative. And the reason that we're positioning those as a bond alternative is because I'm a little nervous right now if we have those spikes in interest rates, that the bond and fixed incomes are not going to perform as expected. So if we have a fixed index annuity that can be tied to an index such as the S&P 500 and return, say 4 to 6% on a relatively safe basis with absolutely zero downside, something any portfolio fixed income can't guarantee right now, I think that's a major win for the client. I think the one annuity that really gives, I think the word annuity a bad name, is the variable annuity. And I really always kind of compare these to like kind of the cigarette of the investment world. And the reason, because they're just riddled with fees. You have admin fees and sub-account fees and 12B1 fees, and sometimes you have rider fees and death benefit fees. And when you're all said and done, it's 3 to 5%.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a lot of fees.
Oh, no, yeah. And on top of that, they're in sub-accounts, so you can still lose money due to market volatility. And I always compare those to basically a Swiss Army knife, where they can do a lot of things, but they don't do anything specifically well. So if you want a hammer, get a hammer. You want a screwdriver, go out and get a screwdriver.
Right. I like that analogy. But it sounds like it's another good option for an income stream for people. And whether or not an annuity is right for our viewers, maybe a good time to come talk to you and your team about that, right?
Absolutely. And that's where that comprehensive, holistic, that 360 is so important. Because it's not about the annuity or mutual fund or ETF or next great stock or gold or silver. Those things just make a part of it, of the plan, but it's the end goals that we measure.
Yes.
Are you able to take that vacation and travel? Are you getting all those needs met? Are you prepared for all those what ifs if someone were to pass or if you were to get sick? So those are the things that are critically important. How we get there and the tools that we use are less important, because most folks I deal with don't care if they have the latest ETF or whatever it may be. They want to make sure that they have that income coming in and that they're able to do the things that they saved their entire life for.
Right, exactly. So another good aspect of coming in and maybe talking to you, so you can relieve those fears for them and help them have peace of mind knowing that they've got a strong plan in place.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's fantastic stuff. Another income stream that people heavily rely on, and one that people talk about constantly. I'm always getting the question, Paul, Social Security, what's the right thing to do?
Right, and the answer is it's different for everybody. The first thing that we always recommend people go out and do is go to ssa.gov and create an account right on the government website. And the other thing, once they get that account created, go through and check all their earnings to make sure that the government reported it right and they got it right. Because it's your top 35 years that go into that calculation.
Oh, wow.
So a couple zeros can really lower that number down.
Right.
So that's the critical aspect, the first thing you want to do. But from a timing aspect, too often we see people just say, I'm going to take it at 62 because my neighbor did.
Right.
And oftentimes that's not the correct decision, especially for a married couple. Usually what we'll say, hey, what if the higher earning spouse waits till 68, 69, or 70? The reason being is because it's rolling up at 8% guaranteed for every year after their full retirement age, plus the cost of living adjustment. And then for that kind of what if planning, if someone were to pass, well, guess what? You lose one of the Social Securities, basically.
Wow.
So now you have this higher amount. So it's a great way to mitigate longevity risk as well.
Fantastic stuff. So, talking about the different income distributions, I know something a little bit about RMDs, but for our viewers out there that may not be super familiar with it, will you share how that impacts it?
And they've been in the news lately because in January 1st of 2020, they changed the RMD requirement. So in the Secure Act that passed and went into effect Jan 1 of 2020, the RMD age was 70 and a half. This is basically the age the government says you have to start withdrawing from your IRAs, your 401ks, your 403bs, 401as. These are all deferred tax vehicles. You have to start taking it out. It starts about 3-4%, and every year gets a little bit higher. So in 2020, that age changed to 72. So now you have till 72 to wait and take it out. The difference there, though, is now they kept the age the same, the 4%. The reason this is so critically important is if you fail to take out that RMD, it is a 50% penalty on the distribution you should have taken.
Wait a second, 50% penalty?
Yes.
That seems like a lot, Keith.
I think it's a lot too, but it's the IRS and they don't negotiate too often. So it's just, so if you had supposed to take out $10,000, that's a $5,000 penalty.
Wow.
On top of that, you still have to take out the RMD for that year. So it's 2 RMDs in 1 year, which means you're probably going to potentially be in a higher tax bracket, so more tax on top of that massive penalty.
One more incredible reason for them to reach out to you. Share with the audience again, would you, what you guys are offering?
Yeah, so what we're offering is a complimentary stress test for the first 10 callers for today that call in. We're going to actually stress test your current financial plan. That means we're going to test for all the what ifs in life. What if you live a very long time? Or what if your spouse predeceases you? What if you get sick in retirement? What if we have another market downturn? We're going to test for all those scenarios and more for the first 10 callers. So call now, 888-222-4498. That's 888-222-4498.
Incredible stuff, Keith. Hey, we have to take a short break, but stick with us, won't you?
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Hello again and welcome back to 360 Retirement. I'm your host, Paul Gephardt, with my guest here, Keith Wiltfong, and we're talking about everything retirement, front to back, right? And so in the break, we were talking a little bit about urgency.
Yes.
Why is it so important that somebody takes action now?
Well, I think the first reason is, tomorrow isn't promised. And we had somebody come in a few weeks back, and I sat down with them. We kind of created a plan, and they said, hey, I'm all set. I'm going to retire, with my spouse here. Next year, we're going to travel the country, and everything's all set and all squared away. And he took a trip. He was a captain, and he took a trip out of state. One of his fellow officers had fallen, and he got sick on that trip. So when he came back, he was still sick for a few days, and then just passed. Massive heart attack, and wasn't with us anymore.
Wow.
And having the plan to do it now and to understand where everything is, because she was just in my office, and we had to go through and say, hey, does this pension have a survivorship? And it didn't. And what about this police pension? Is this going to have any type of survivorship or benefit for the surviving spouse? And it didn't. So now it completely changed the plan. And if she would have saw us a few months ago, we could have stress tested and planned for some of these things. And I always recommend come in the sooner, the better. Because as soon as we can put that plan in place, we can prepare for tomorrow and the unknown that tomorrow may bring.
Boy, that's so true. You got to plan ahead these days, now more than ever, because life is constantly changing on us.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about her specifically is just she has such a spirit that she's like, you know what, he would still want me to go. I'm still going to go. I'm still going to do this.
Good for her.
And that's where, when we plan for retirement, as far as the income, it's not a straight line, like a boring straight line analysis.
Yeah.
It's really more of a U, where we really want to stack the income early on when we know we're feeling good, right? And we can travel and do things and spend time with grandkids. Yes. Or if you want to stay home and golf, do whatever you want, right?
I vote for that.
Right. And then, so we really try to stack it early, and then as you get a little bit older, the income typically peels off a little bit, and then towards the end it kind of goes up again because of healthcare cost.
Right.
So we really have to plan accordingly for that complete cycle. But usually a lot of times people say, can I really spend this or afford this? And a lot of times the answer is yes. Do it now. You spend your whole lifetime for this.
Right.
If you don't do it today, when are you going to do it?
Right. If not now, then when, right?
Right.
So you worked hard to get this money. You might as well enjoy it, right?
Absolutely.
That it's interesting what you're talking about, that income stream, because I do think a lot of folks, that is a little bit of a deterrent, right? Is knowing when the right time is, and automatically thinking it may be a traditional retirement. But you brought up a wonderful idea. Sometimes it's not even just retiring, it's transitioning into something else.
Yeah, and a lot of people have a hard time initially with the transition, going from they save their entire life to go from accumulation to distribution, because they kind of have this, hey, I made it to this mark, right? I don't want to be lower than that. I don't want to actually spend this.
Yes.
And then so for a lot of people, they switch hobbies or they'll work part-time, not because they have to, but because they want to. And I can tell you, working because you want to and because you have to are two vastly different things and different mindsets. But a lot of our clients continue to work part-time just for the social interaction.
Yeah.
They said, if I spent all day with my spouse, I'd probably be divorced. So,
Like that.
so they go out and have hobbies and do stuff. So it's a little bit of marriage counselor every now and then.
Yeah. Whatever you do, Keith, getting back to work. That's awesome. But you said something powerful there that I really, hopefully the viewers picked up on, but it really struck with me. It's like, being able to do what you want to do and not what you have to do.
Yes.
And that's what
Choice.
it's all about, right? Being able to buy back our time.
Yeah.
And have the freedom to spend it with whom we want to.
Right.
And that's every bit as important, being able to go those places, if you want to travel with your family, right?
Yeah, because you can always make more money, you can't make more time.
Boy, absolutely.
Time is finite.
Absolutely. And 2008 taught us that for sure. Our small business owners, speaking of folks that have really been through some challenges, the pandemic. We talked about 2008, obviously, but the pandemic was a big deal. It really hammered our small business owners. And, most small business owners, they can't really afford a big team of people, HR people to help them.
Right.
But your team can actually fill a void there, right?
We can. So we help with the 401ks. We can help get that set up. We can also, the biggest thing that will help is succession planning, make sure that there's a plan in place. Some key person stuff, if something were to pass or get sick unexpectedly, we can help fill that void for the small businesses. But I feel it's a very underserved community and often overlooked. And I think, especially during the COVID, some of the people in the restaurants and hospitalities, it's sad, but some of those businesses just aren't coming back.
Right. And having a good plan right along the way could probably help a lot of these businesses survive, right?
Yes.
So that's important stuff, and I really appreciate the work you're doing for the small business owners. Listen, I can tell you I've been just thoroughly impressed with the amount of information you shared with us today, and incredibly grateful. I wonder if you could just share, one more time with the audience what you're offering for them and why it's so important for them to come meet with your team.
Yeah, and so what we're offering is a complimentary stress test of your entire financial plan. And we're really gonna run the gamut in this. We're gonna do, the fancy charts and graphs with the Monte Carlo simulation for the portfolio analysis, but we're also gonna be taking a look at all the what ifs that are often overlooked. What if my spouse were to pass? How does my plan look? How does my life look now? What do I wanna do now? Or what if taxes all of a sudden jump up and now I'm paying a lot more in income taxes? Or what if interest rates have a big spike, kind of like a little bit like they did in 13? So those are the things that we're gonna take a look at and really stress test to make sure that the financial plan is bulletproof. And that's complimentary for the first 10 callers. So call right now, 888-222-4498. Again, that number is 888-222-4498.
Wow. Again, thank you so much, Keith. I hope you've learned a lot today on the show. One of the things I wanted to ask, and it's the final question that I have, what do you want your tomorrow to look like? Find out today by giving Keith and his team a call, and I'm sure you'll be glad you did. So, again, I'm your host, Paul Gebhardt. We want to thank you so much for being with us. Keith, I know.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.